Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another discipline dialogue session we have for the fall 2024 semester. Joining us today is Jason Allen from the Lafayette campus. Jason, I'll give the floor to you for a minute here to introduce yourself to the group.
Sure. Hi, I'm Jason Allen from the Lafayette campus. I've been the automotive program chair now for about 6 years, been teaching in automotive for about the past 13 years. So I'm currently our statewide curriculum committee chair for automotive and kind of have a pretty good handle on the pulse of the programs across the state. So glad to be here.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us today, Jason. My name is Dr. Mark Schneider. I'm the AVP of K-14 Academic Initiatives and Support for Ivy Tech. It's a long title, but basically it means just on the academic side of the house, I help with all the programming of all of our dual credit classes. So we have roughly 60 programs, 400 classes, or at least courses that could be offered for dual credit class. And we'll help work with around 3,700 instructors, which we have a few on the call here today from the automotive area. We appreciate you joining. Before we start our conversation with Jason, we are at the end of November, but we've been calling November from the dual credit side NACEP November. For those of you who have been teaching dual credit, for more than 5 or 6 years with Ivy Tech, you probably remember what the world was like pre-NACEP, NACEP being our accrediting body. We've really come a long way during that process 5 years ago to professionalize our dual credit offerings across the state. And now it's time to reaffirm our accreditation. And so that's a 2-year process, 2.5-year process. Next year, we'll be looking for some great submissions when it comes to assignments, syllabi, exams, hands-on activities, other things like that. We'll need instructors to show up for a peer review or a session with our peer reviewers. All that to say, if you'd like to be a part of some of the stuff that we're going to be doing with NACEP here over the next year or two, like to lean into it, we'd appreciate it. I'll put my name and email in the chat, and if you're up to it, just reach out to us and we'll make sure to get in contact with you. So all that to be said, Jason, we have some talking points here. We're going to try to cover most of them here before we open it up for Q&A. For our dual credit instructors, a lot of high school teachers are surprised to find out, and I was surprised to find out being a former high school teacher before I joined the college, that the curriculum decisions are largely, or usually in most cases, exclusively driven by decisions of the faculty. The administration has kind of a minimal role in what goes on with curriculum decisions and things like that. So our faculty, depending on the program, meets at least once a year, sometimes 2 or 3 times a year, maybe once a semester. But Jason has the automotive. I know most of the curriculum committees have already met now for the fall semester. Was there anything of note that potentially popped up that could impact dual credit programming? Maybe new courses, new credentialing requirements, course sequencing change, new certificates, anything like that? Or maybe you can just tell us everything's more or less status quo for the next year or two, which is also welcome news if we hear that.
Yeah, so our biggest change voted in this year, which starts fall of 25, is the credentialing requirements for instructors across the board, Ivy Tech faculty, as well as adjunct faculty, and for dual credit adjunct faculty. So the requirements align with our accreditation body, the ASC Education Foundation, which will now have a whole set of requirements for ASE certification as a requirement to be a credentialed instructor. And I have a lot of people that ask what that is. Okay, so as a general rule, an adjunct instructor needs to have the ASE G1 certification, which is a maintenance light repair, as well as the A6 electrical, plus the area that they're teaching in. Say you're teaching a brakes course, you need to have brakes, electrical, and G1 to be able to teach that. One thing new for this year is G1 is not required if you hold ASE Master Certification status. And part of the reason for this guidelines, we've had a lot of instructors wanting to teach as an adjunct with virtually no experience in automotive specifically. So our curriculum committee has unanimously voted this as an approved guideline. It's required at all of our campuses already, and we found it equally as important that any instructor that's going to teach dual credit or otherwise be credentialed properly to teach the course.
So, Jason, I'm sure if any of our dual credit instructors, particularly those that might be watching this on our YouTube recording, at a later date, past November 26, 2024, if they have particular questions about the credentialing requirements, they can reach out to their program chair. It sounds like every program chair is very familiar
Yes.
with these changes. And then that also kind of gives me a good prompt to remind all of our dual credit instructors that if you are a dual credit instructor with us, as Jason mentioned, that means that you meet our faculty credentialing requirements for, to be an adjunct or, to do anything with us on campus. Some programs lend themselves more than others to needing adjunct instructors, but if you would like, for, potential part-time work, with us, and like over the summer or maybe in the evenings at one of our campuses, just reach out to your local program chair. They might have an opening right now where they're looking to get another part-time instructor. And if you're teaching one of our dual credit classes, you meet our credentialing requirements for at least one class, probably a bunch of them, and it could be a big win-win situation for us and for you.
So I can share as well, if you're interested in summer or fall teaching at the campus level, let us know way in advance because I already have my summer and next fall schedule made out with instructors. So we need to know in quite a bit in advance.
Yep. So always good to know, though. Try to build
Yeah.
that professional relationship there with with our instructors. Um, Jason, one question we kind of have been getting on a decent basis is, like our dual credit instructors know, to a certain extent, the course that they're teaching is, for all intents and purposes, a complete college class. You have college credentials for the instructor. You're teaching college course objectives. There's a lot of college curriculum that's being used. You get a college grade. It's a college class for all intents and purposes in a high school setting. Is there anything that maybe lends itself with your programs that you oversee that kind of maybe differentiates itself from what you see at Ivy Tech and like on campus with a college course as opposed to a high school class at a career center or at a high school? Is there any sort of differentiation either on the instructor, the curriculum, any other, maybe a point of emphasis, in the difference there?
So one advantage that the college has is we have designated hours students arrive and leave. I've spoke to many high school students and instructors that tell me they're a career center and they have people coming and going on different schedules. It's very difficult to manage. We're trying to get to where we would like to see everybody on the same schedule as far as if you have 3 different or 4 different schools coming to your location, everybody being on a semester basis or trimester, if that's better fit, instead of having crazy schedules. That way, it's much easier to get the timing right for all of your students. I've been told by some of my dual credit instructors that it's very difficult when some buses arrive an hour later than others for everybody to get it to that career center. These are the challenges that we don't necessarily have to struggle with is the timing because we have a start time and a stop time. So kudos to you guys that are making it work. The biggest difference I see between college and high school is our school system at the college level has a very good relationship with Perkins funding. And I've spoke with high schools that struggle to get funding for equipment. Um, please, please, please tell your CTE directors what you need. I encourage you to build a wish list of hardware, equipment that you need. That way, when they come to you and say, what do you need? You have a list prepared, and you should always update that at least annually. If, on another note, if you guys don't have an advisory board, I highly recommend an advisory board to help give emphasis to how industry would like to see your program shaped. Advisory boards are a key role in what you do as an instructor. And then also invite your local program chair to be on that board. Advisory boards are well respected from the administration at all schools, and they can really help turn the head in the direction. So,
Something I've put in the chat for everyone to look at if they are wanting to view an equipment list. Maybe if you're getting ready to form your own wish list, like Jason suggested for Perkins funding. Our dual credit crosswalk has a litany of information, but one of them has a column. And if the program has required equipment, we've had the curriculum committee give us a list to put on there. And so I think Jason did all the work for the automotive ones, but it's very well done, laying out, down to, like how many you need of this and that, and, the length of different hoses and like all this stuff. So that's a good starting point for you if you would like to keep, to start developing that. Um, Jason, as we think about like our dual credit courses and course sequencing and other things like that, with next level programs of study and the way now dual credit courses are built, especially like on the CTE side, usually the end goal is some sort of a completion, a certificate, technical certificate, perhaps. Can you give us, a few ideas of, like if you have a student that comes to you at Lafayette that wants to do the automotive program that's maybe taken through concentrator B, which would typically be like 6 dual credit classes, like what options are are available to them, whether it's in terms of the program itself and getting the completion here, or maybe like transfer options or other things like that.
yeah, that's great. So, the maintenance light repair certificate contains 6 courses. Most of my dual credit instructors actually cover 7 courses. The 7th being the engine fundamentals. Some prefer the diesel course instead. But you guys really have option to what you have the ability to teach. So if we could get the maintenance light repair certificate to every high school completion automotive program, that would be great. That certificate includes the 100 intro course, brakes, steering and suspension, engine performance 1, the drivelines 145, and electrical 1 course. So these are all very entry level courses. So on that, so over the past few years, and Mark, you may have more insight to this, they've offered free summer courses for high school students. This can be graduating seniors or juniors going into their senior year. If they offer that free high school course in Lafayette, my dual credit students can take the second level, like electrical 2 as an option, and maybe even climate controls. And they're going to be very near finishing their technical certificate just out of high school. So the technical certificate is halfway through to the associate degree, and that can really give them a leg up. Most of our strong students coming out of the career centers are finishing their associate degree within about a year, maybe a year and a summer, and being very successful in the field. So I applaud you guys for the work you do for our students.
Yeah, and to answer your question about free summer, as of today, November 26, 2024, for the summer courses uh, that we have offered the last 2, 3 years, where high school students or graduating seniors can take any courses for free over the summer. We do not have any formalized plans for that yet. That's
That's
something that
fair.
typically gets developed as you get closer to the new budget year, which we're still a little ways away for that. We do have a program that's called Crossing the Finish Line that is set to run this year for spring semester courses and the summer. But the caveat is that a student needs to be within 2 courses, 6 or 7 credit hours of a completion of some sort, the completion being 15 credit hours or higher. So if, the student is graduating and they have 15 hours and they need that last course to get the certificate in whatever program, that course would be eligible to be free. But the blanket statement of any course for any high school student, which we've used in the past, at least at this moment in time, is not available
Okay.
for the summer. But stay tuned. Those decisions are typically made more around like spring break time and stuff. Jason, one other question here before we kind of jump into the Q&A. Could you go through like what a typical site visit looks like? I know sometimes we have some of our newer dual credit instructors who kind of view it as a like an evaluation that they get with their high school principal or assistant
Yeah.
principal, like where there's a checklist and, oh, you got caught doing this wrong or something like that. And I always say, at least from the statewide perspective, like that's not like what we're looking for at all. We don't want to have anything like that. We're always looking for a collaborative two-way relationship with our instructors and program chairs. I've heard numerous times that our program chairs learn so many things from the site visits that they take back into their own classrooms. I mean, it's really just a great way to share best practices among colleagues. But could you tell what you look for in a typical site visit, how long it lasts, those types of things?
Yeah. One thing that we usually look for is to make sure that the equipment is adequate for what you're claiming to do. If it is not, we can assist with that. So I know in my region, I try to share equipment with the dual credit instructor so that they can, like, for instance, electronics. We have electronics trainers that for some reason they haven't been able to get at their school. So we can take over small electronic keyboard type trainers. They can go through a week or two of electronics training with those. And then when they're done, we go pick them up. And this relationship, we're truly here to help you guys be successful. So if you don't ask, we don't know how to help. So you really need to have a good working base with your program chair because we are truly here to help. There's some things that are not easily movable. About as large of equipment as we do is on-car brake lathe for the brakes training. It's a key piece of equipment that should be taught everywhere. If you don't have it here on our campus, we have 3, and we can usually lend those out for 2 to 3 days and then come retrieve them. But much larger than that, we usually have to recommend you guys to get the equipment. So we look for equipment and how might we help you achieve goals, or an example, steering and suspension. People feel that they need an alignment rack, and that's not necessarily true. That is a very expensive, large piece of equipment. If you can fill those learning objectives by, instead of doing a lab in your shop, going to a local dealership and hosting that event over a 2 to 3 hour session, that fits. So brainstorming with your program chair on how to meet the requirements or how to meet the credentialing standards as far as equipment and facility, we're here to help with that as well. So really just a strong working relationship between the program chair and you guys. We're here to help. That's the key point.
Uh, Great point there, Jason. Before we open it up for Q&A, do want to remind some of our instructors about some of the things that are available to them as dual credit instructors with the college. We do offer free courses to our dual credit instructors, the same as we do with like our adjunct faculty. So you are allowed up to 6 credit hours for free each semester, but this also applies to your spouse and your dependents. So you get 6 credit hours, however you would like to divide that
Yes.
among them every semester. But think our classes are typically 3 credit hours. They run a little bit more than $500 a course. So you'd be looking at around $1,000 in savings each semester. So if you do have a child that is going to be attending Ivy Tech or is currently attending Ivy Tech, reach out to your local K-14 director. The process to get all that paperwork filed goes through HR. Some DocuSign documents, things like that. But it typically takes a week or so to get that taken care of. But do sign up for that. The only caveat is that you have had to have been a dual credit instructor for 1 calendar year before you're eligible for it. So once you get that year under your belt, then you are good to go for that. You can also go onto the Ivy Tech website, my.ivytech.edu, and you can also download all the Microsoft Office, the suite products that they have. So, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. A typical subscription, I think, costs a little more than $100 a year. But if you have an active Ivy Tech email, which all of our instructors and actually students have as well, you can download all those products. And as long as you're active with the college, you can use them for free with that and save you from having to use a subscription service with it. Okay, so we've gone through, about 20 minutes worth of talking now. I want to open up in case anyone does have any questions for myself or Jason.
I can't hear it.
We can't hear you, Ed. We'll give you a minute here. Okay, so that's a good question. So for those watching the recording here, said the school would like to put more kids into the course, 8 lifts in the shop, but 17 kids in the class. That works well, but if the number was to get to, say, around 30 students next year, that could maybe cause issues. Is there a recommendation on class size, Jason?
So across the state, there's a lot of variation in class size. Usually facility matters. How many can you house? Per lift, we cap ours at 4 people per lift, and our courses in Lafayette are capped at 16 students. So this is part of the reason why, and you guys probably all know this, it's very difficult to adequately help. We pair them up in 2s, so that's 8 spots in pairs of 2. It's hard to maintain adequate safety and adequate time for that instructor to help or assist everybody if we get over that 16 cap. In Indianapolis, they have a much larger facility, and I believe they cap their courses at 20. So this pressure to grow is a real deal. Maybe they should consider adding a second or third instructor to expand that to almost double where you're at now.
That is an interesting question. Honestly, probably this type of question has been the biggest surprise. We've had 10 of these recordings now, and it's probably popped up in about half the classes about what class or half of the sessions, questions around the class size, should there be caps? other things like that. Generally speaking, from the dual credit perspective, I mean, we don't have like, a minimum number of students needed or a maximum, but sometimes there are accreditation or safety requirements. I know welding also has a limit for students per welding bay and things like that, but that is something, yeah, to keep in mind right there.
Yeah, and really safety is the key one right there. How many groups can I have facilitating a lab safely and have time to adequately make sure everything's going as planned? So it's a good question. That's where that advisory board really comes in. They can also say, whoa, that's too much, or they can say you may be able to handle a little more and this is how. So advisory boards really help for that as well.
Then Jason, I'm going to spring one last question on you, and if you don't know the answer,
Okay.
that's perfectly fine too. But as we do record this, we're 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks away from the State Board of Education coming out with the new rules for the high school diploma, high school redesign, everything along those lines. That's really been in the news a lot the last year and a half or more. And there's going to be a big emphasis on work-based learning, trying to get students, experiences, hands-on experiences. I think automotive really lends itself well, to that. Are there any opportunities? I mean, is there typically pairings or partnerships, I guess would be the better way to say it, between like Ivy Tech automotive programs and like local shops or car dealerships or other things like that? Or, can you think of anything that would maybe lend itself to allowing students to get that work-based learning experience if they want, say, for instance, 75 hours of a student's high school career in a place of employment of some sort?
Yeah, so at the college level, we have a course called AUTI 280, and it's a co-op internship course. It requires the student to be in a repair facility, either as a shadow, an apprentice, or directly on the line for 168 hours out of that term, whether it be a semester or over the summer. It's very popular for summers when students don't want to take classes. They want to be in the shop and they have to track their hours and set goals. And over that 168 hours, try to achieve goals like efficiency or more proficient in a certain area. And then talk about maybe how many hours we turn in that time period versus when we started. So it gives them an opportunity, kind of a stretch goal of where I'm at now and where I want to be and trying to achieve that goal and get familiar with shop flow and everything else that comes with an internship. So uh, a lot of employers desire help. They're all looking for help. So the difference between the internship and co-op is one's paid and the other is not. So many of them are willing to pay for the help. And I'm sure that a lot of our high schools also have employers hounding them for help as well.
Um, Yeah, those are all good points. And we don't know what the final rules are going to look like, the final high school graduation requirements, but I think there's a lot of opportunities here, especially for programs that lend itself, potentially quite easily towards some of those programs or those offerings as high school administrators look at, being able to serve students and get those graduation requirements. In that 280 course that you mentioned, we do frequently have a 280 internship co-op course in many of our programs. So I'm sure that we'll see that added potentially as a capstone course to the NLPS class, for all of our programs as a way to embed that. So stay tuned. We'll have more information here in a month or so, definitely after the first of the year. So does anyone else have any questions before we head on out? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. Before we head off, just wanted to wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. But then also thank you for all of your work as a dual credit instructor. This year, we're on pace for potentially around 95,000 students across the state of Indiana who will earn at least one or complete one class of dual credit. So we are the largest program in the country by a factor of 3 or 4 with those large numbers. And then we'll probably have in excess of 10,000 completions being earned by high school students. So think of those different certificates and technical certificates, a huge number that's being, earned by high school students, which is making a big difference in their lives. And all that to say, we appreciate all the work that you would do as a dual credit instructor. Oftentimes, there's a lot of extra work that goes into it to being a dual credit instructor, and you usually just do all of it out of the goodness of your heart. There's no extra benefits that are associated with it or anything like that, and we really do appreciate all that you're doing. But it is making a big difference in the lives of students. So thank you for all of that, and keep on doing all the great work. And if you have any questions, just reach out to myself or Jason or your local program chair. We'll be happy to help you however we can. So thanks again, and have a good rest of your Tuesday.